Good morning. How is everyone doing? It is almost the weekend. We're just on the cusp of it. I actually mowed part of the yard this morning. Yay me. Anyone else getting tired of mowing the yard in August? You think to yourself, if I don't do it at 6 in the morning, shit ain't going to get done? It's like, Candace, she taught us about the grass. She said, when it rains a lot, it seems like the grass grows. Well, we had some rain, so time to mow. Joy goes, hell yeah, hell yeah. Robin, there we go. Fellow Okie. She said, good morning. I was telling my daughter about Karen Silkwood day before yesterday. This is a case that is never going to leave the state of Oklahoma. It's never going to happen. It will never happen. There are always going to be so many questions. And I will say this, whistleblowers almost always die from the same diseases. It can be a pew-pew to the back of the head, which is always labeled a suicide, an accidental drowning, or a single car accident. Well, Karen Silkwood was calling them out left and right at the Kerr-McGee in Crescent, Oklahoma. See, they were messing with things they shouldn't have, and they were making a lot of people sick. And I mean a lot. She had already gone to the Atomic Energy Commission in Washington, D.C. and told them what was going on at Kerr-McGee. So that cat was already out of the bag. She decided to take it a step further, and she decided to meet with David Burnham, a New York Times journalist. She had all the documents that she needed. Okay? Well, the car was found, but not the documents. It says that her body was found in the car, which had run off the road and struck a culvert on the east side of State Highway 74. Pronounced dead at the scene. Somehow an Oklahoma state trooper remembers that he found 1 or 2 tablets of Quaalude in the car. And he remembers finding cannabis. Hey, it was no secret that she smoked. No secret. The police report said she fell asleep at the wheel. Then the coroner said they found 0.35 milligrams of methaquolone per 100 milliliters of blood at the time of her death, and almost twice the recommended dosage for drowsiness. Now, why would she have taken all of that, knowing that she had to get these documents to David Burnham? Shit didn't happen. There's been a lot of theories about how her car was rammed from behind. The skid marks actually prove how she got ran off the road. Now, her family, from the plutonium exposure, they did receive $1.38 million. Remember, this happened November 13th, 1994. Now, that $1.38 million probably didn't last too long. Not say anything about their spending habits. I mean, the attorney took 40% of it. But who could have killed her? Was it issues with the union that told her to leave it alone? Was it some sort of mob that was hired from Kerr McGee. Someone got those documents, though. And mark my words, my friends, they would have killed David Burnham too if he had gotten the documents before he had gotten on the plane to go back to New York City. There's a picture of her car. Yeah, it ran right into the culvert. What sense does it make for a woman to have such a mission, but decide to take a ton of Quaaludes before you go to meet this reporter from the New York Times? And they had picked a safe spot so nothing would happen to either one of them. There it is again. No one's ever going to buy this, and it's still an open investigation. But this case is going to haunt the state of Oklahoma forever. Let's get... I don't know about you all, but I don't really believe in coincidence. And she had already been threatened many times, and they were trying to threaten her. They wanted her to be scared. Somebody actually planted toxic chemicals in her house. And they said to her that she must have done it herself. Now, who the hell wants to sprinkle the cancer on themselves? No one. No one. Robin Brown said it was an inside job. How did she get plutonium ingested? How did everyone else at Kerr McGee get it? Why would they take them in those showers and scrub them down? I don't get it either. I don't get it. Look at that. Pickle Me Elmo, member for 20 months. Love you, Elmo. Love you. All right, this is from a channel called Slapped. I'll put it in here. Let's go through it because I like how they put this together. And I've been obsessed with this case since God was a boy, okay? Remember, November 13th, 1974. Also, please remember that a lot of whistleblowers seem to have accidents that can't be explained. I'm surprised that all those people that turned in the tobacco companies are still up and walking. But it seems the FBI started using that gray matter between their ears and realized people need protection. We have whistleblower laws now. Last I checked, though, if somebody wants you DEAD, they don't go to the internet or to the law library. They don't do this. Is it illegal to kill a person? No, they don't. They want you gone. They'll figure out a way.
In the quiet town of Crescent, Oklahoma, a chilling tale of corporate malfeasance, radiation exposure, and a suspicious death unfolds. The year was 1974, and Karen Silkwood, a 28-year-old laboratory technician at the Kerr McGee plutonium plant, was about to blow the whistle on shocking safety violations.
Shocking is an understatement. Shocking is an understatement. There wasn't a suit good enough in the world to do what they were doing there. Plutonium pellets? Uranium? Safety violation doesn't cover it. And Kerr McGee wanted that union out of their face. They wanted them gone. They wanted no union in Oklahoma at all. They're like, I don't care. If you're a shit-pulling plumber, I don't want any union in my face. Can't say that I blame them. I can't say that I blame them because a lot of stuff went wrong for Kerr McGee. And don't forget, they are a multi-billion-dollar company.
What followed was a series of events that would culminate in her untimely demise, leaving a trail of unanswered questions and conspiracy theories in its wake. Karen Silkwood was an unlikely hero in the world of nuclear power. A working-class mother of three, she had become increasingly alarmed by the dangerous conditions at the Kerr McGee plant. The facility was responsible for processing plutonium, a highly radioactive and toxic substance used in the production of nuclear weapons.
They did. It was an unhidden secret in Oklahoma. Now, mind you, I wasn't even born in 1974. But if you talk to anyone, well, older than 1974, they always knew it was a very unhidden secret. To this day, if you go to Crescent, Oklahoma, there is still sludge pits full of shit because they really didn't even know how to get rid of the stuff at the time. By the way, I am not saying, well, it was back then, it was back then, it was back then. I'm not saying that. It's like Quapaw, Oklahoma, those chat piles. Hell, you got people walking around around there all the time with those big old tumors and shit hanging off their necks.
Silkwood, a member of the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union, was determined to expose the lax safety standards that jeopardized both workers and the community at large. Before becoming an indomitable whistleblower, Karen Silkwood's life followed a different path. Born in Longview, Texas, and raised in Nederland, she grew up alongside her two sisters, Linda and Rosemary. She pursued higher education at Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas, before marrying William Meadows, an oil pipeline worker in 1965. The couple would go on to have 3 children. However, their life took a tumultuous turn as they faced bankruptcy due to Meadows' financial recklessness, which included an extramarital affair he refused to end. In 1972, Silkwood made a life-altering decision, leaving behind her troubled marriage and relocating to Oklahoma City, where she briefly found work as a hospital clerk. It was in this new chapter of her life that she would become an instrumental figure in exposing corporate misconduct and fighting for the rights and safety of workers at the Kerr McGee plutonium plant.
Okay, some people have compared Karen Silkwood to Erin Brockovich. I will say this in my opinion. I think she is 500 times the woman that Erin Brockovich is. She had major plans to bring all this down and get it all straightened out there. She was en route, and you cannot tell me she took all those Quaaludes. You cannot tell me. Did she smoke some grass? Probably did. No secret there. No secret there. What are you going to do? No way would she take all of that medication, fall asleep behind the wheel, and then run into the culvert. I'm still thinking, we'll get to this in a minute. I hate to jump ahead. She had been at a meeting before this. I still think somebody put something in her food, put something in her drink, or something, because it was no secret that she was getting ready to expose all of them to the New York Times.
Hired at the Kerr McGee Cimarron fuel fabrication site plant in Crescent, Oklahoma in 1972, she quickly became a force to be reckoned with. Silkwood joined the local Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union, and her fiery spirit soon led her to participate in a strike at the plant. When the dust settled, she found herself elected to the union's bargaining committee. A groundbreaking move as the first woman to hold such a position at Kerr McGee. Silkwood's role on the bargaining committee wasn't just a milestone for gender equality, it was a turning point in the battle for workers' rights and safety. She was tasked with investigating health and safety concerns at the plant, and what she uncovered was nothing short of shocking. Silkwood believed she had stumbled upon a litany of health regulation violations, including perilous exposure of workers to contamination, the use of faulty respiratory equipment, and improper storage of samples. Moreover, she pointed out that inadequate shower facilities at the plant increased the risk of employee contamination. The Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union threw its weight behind Silkwood's claims, asserting that the Kerr-McGee plant had not only manufactured faulty fuel rods, but also had falsified product inspection records, ultimately jeopardizing the safety of its employees. Litigation loomed ominously on the horizon. The summer of 1974 marked a crucial moment in Silkwood's crusade for justice.
Well, how many of your coworkers are going to be exposed to uranium, plutonium, all the things they make nukes out of, and someone not call an attorney and say, I need some help here? They just want to give them workman's comp. And I'm not about going after the man. I'm not about taking advantage of the employer. But nobody should ever work anywhere where they're being exposed to cancer. And they settled those lawsuits over and over and over and over and over. They were writing checks like hotcakes.
Justice. She testified before the Atomic Energy Commission, the AEC, revealing the contamination she had personally endured. She boldly alleged that safety standards had been intentionally relaxed to accommodate an uptick in production, a dangerous compromise that put lives at stake. The turning point in this tale came on November 5, 1974, when Silkwood conducted a routine self-check. What she discovered was chilling. Her body contained nearly 400 times the legal limit for plutonium contamination. In a desperate attempt to rectify the situation, she underwent decontamination at the plant and was sent home with a testing kit to collect samples for further analysis. However, the source of her contamination remained a puzzle. Even though there was plutonium on the inner portions of the gloves she had been using, meticulous inspection revealed no holes, leaving a disturbing question mark hanging in the air. The morning after her decontamination, as she prepared to attend a union negotiation meeting,
because she was safe, she would make sure that her suit, her gloves, everything checked out. Does anyone here think that with her hell raising, that someone contaminated her purposely? Sounds like it to me.
Silkwood once again tested positive for plutonium, despite having engaged in only paperwork duties that day. A more intensive decontamination followed. On November 7th, as she entered the plant, the extent of her contamination became alarmingly evident. She was even expelling contaminated air from her lungs. A team of health physicists accompanied Silkwood back to her home, where they discovered plutonium traces on various surfaces, particularly in the bathroom and the refrigerator. The home had to undergo an extensive decontamination process, leading to the destruction of some of Silkwood's property. Alongside her boyfriend Drew Stevens and her roommate Dusty Ellis, Silkwood was sent to the Los Alamos National Laboratory for comprehensive testing to determine the full extent of contamination in their bodies. The question of how Silkwood became contaminated during this 3-day period remained a vexing one.
I think someone did it to her. Just my opinion. I don't have a name to go with it. But remember, whistleblowers almost always die from the same diseases. And if you can't get them at work due to the own contaminants around work, they'll find another way, especially when someone is going to Washington, D.C. to talk to the Atomic Energy Commission. Could you imagine having friggin' plutonium on your skin? I mean, unless you're trying to get back to 1950. You have to be super careful. You have to be trained. And it's very interesting to look at whistleblowers, not just the ones related to the Clintons, but how many whistleblowers have died of freak accidents.
She speculated that the bathroom contamination might have occurred when she spilled her urine sample on the morning of November 7. This theory aligned with the evidence showing the samples she had taken at home exhibited alarmingly high levels of contamination, while the samples collected in fresh jars at the plant and at Los Alamos displayed significantly lower levels. Kerr-McGee's management, on the other hand, mounted a vigorous defense, alleging that Silkwood had deliberately contaminated herself to tarnish the company's reputation, noting that even a bologna and cheese sandwich in her apartment tested positive for radiation. As Richard L. Rashke's book, The Killing of Karen Silkwood, would later reveal, security at the plant was so lax that workers could easily smuggle out finished plutonium pellets. Astonishingly, the type of soluble plutonium found in Silkwood's body had not been accessible to her for 4 months, stored safely away in the vault of the facility. The events leading up to Karen Silkwood's tragic end on November 13, 1974, were as enigmatic as they were disturbing. In the midst of a contentious union battle with Kerr-McGee over serious worker safety violations, Silkwood discovered a chilling truth. She had been contaminated with a lethal dose of plutonium. It was a revelation that demanded action, and she and the union decided it was time to speak out. Their chosen confidant was David Burnham, a New York Times reporter. Scheduled to meet in Oklahoma City, Karen Silkwood embarked on a drive down Highway 74. However, just 5 minutes into her journey, tragic struck.
5 minutes into her journey. Loose lips sink ships. They do. And yes, there is an amazing movie called Silkwood with Meryl Streep, Cher, Kurt Russell. We're going to see some clips from the movie today. It's almost impossible to find. Why is that? Because they want the truth to go away. And that movie was so close to the truth, according to people that worked at Kerr-McGee. 5 minutes into her trip, you're telling me, look, it's not that far from Crescent, Oklahoma to Oklahoma City to meet David Burnham. She fell asleep behind the wheel. And you know what? Other people in Oklahoma went along with it. She fell asleep at the wheel. She fell asleep at the wheel. 5 minutes into your drive. 5 minutes in. Bull hockey.
Her car careened off the road, colliding with a culvert. And she met an untimely death on that dark, desolate stretch of Oklahoma highway. David Burnham, unaware of the impending tragedy, waited for Karen for hours. When she failed to arrive, the union reached out to local authorities and discovered the grim reality. A cloud of suspicion hung heavily in the air. Was it a mere accident, a twist of fate, or did something more sinister transpire that night? As the first news reports emerged, questions began to surface. Union investigators pointed to the damage and the presence of different colored paint chips on the rear bumper of Silkwood's car.
Let's talk about that. This has been talked about, well, we're going on 50 years. Damn, I'm old. It'll be 50 years in November. Why would there be back damage to her car? Her rate of speed would not be enough if she went off the road into the culvert to kill her like that. The different paint chips, she had a white car. I'm still saying she was ran off the road. And once she went into the culvert, Someone got into the back and they got those documents. Why was the trunk found open? It just popped open? Did dead Karen get out and open it up to find the documents? No. No, my friends. They had to make sure those documents did not make it to Oklahoma City for the New York Times to publish,
suggesting she had been run off the road. The implications were profound. Had a massive corporation like Kerr-McGee gone to such lengths as to murder one of its own employees to protect its secrets? David Burnham, who arrived at the accident scene, noticed a disturbing detail: a bloody notebook. What he didn't find, however, was the folder that was said to contain all the crucial evidence against Kerr-McGee. A fellow union attendee later testified that they saw Silkwood on the morning of her death carrying a binder and a packet of documents. Silkwood's relatives also confirmed she had been carrying evidence with her that morning, placing the documents in the passenger seat of her car before leaving for work. The folder's absence at the site of the crash added another layer of intrigue to the mystery, leaving open the possibility that it had been removed from the scene. The official report, as it stands, offers a less sensational explanation, suggesting that Karen Silkwood had fallen asleep at the wheel. But for those that knew her and the high-stakes nature of her mission, this theory seems implausible. Michael, Karen's son, expressed skepticism, noting the improbability of his mother falling asleep within just 5 minutes on a night filled with stress and urgency. The circumstances surrounding her death were shrouded in mystery. Was it a tragic accident, or was Silkwood the victim of foul play orchestrated by those determined to silence her? The latter theory gained traction as the evidence began to surface. An autopsy revealed that Silkwood's body contained a significant amount of radioactive contamination, far higher than what would be expected from her routine work at the plant. Could this contamination have been the result of a deliberate act? Many believe so, pointing fingers at Kerr-McGee officials who stood to lose billions in potential lawsuits and a tarnished reputation. The legal battle that ensued was as contentious as it was convoluted. The Silkwood family filed a lawsuit against Kerr-McGee seeking damages for Karen's contamination and death. In 1979, a jury awarded the family a substantial sum, but the case left numerous questions unanswered. Was Karen Silkwood's death a result of corporate sabotage? Were her efforts to expose safety violations a threat powerful enough to warrant her murder? Over the years, the case of Karen Silkwood has continued to captivate the public's imagination, inspiring books, documentaries, and even a Hollywood film. Her death remains an unsolved puzzle, with no conclusive evidence to prove foul play definitively. Nonetheless, the legacy of her brave whistleblowing efforts endures, serving as a poignant reminder of the lengths some will go to protect their interests, even at the expense of human lives.
Damn right. Now, if you live anywhere around the Oklahoma City area and you watch the local news, you know this case is not going away. Hell, on my news outside of Tulsa just a few days ago, they had an update. Snow said, "What's in the documents they don't want seen? Easy. Corporate corruption, billions in lawsuits, plutonium exposure, uranium exposure, a lot. It's horrible." Now, I know a lot of people have been talking about the movie. I'm just going to play this part right now. We're not going to watch the full movie, obviously. This is clipped from Stephen Altobello. And the sad fact of the matter is, the medical doctor that's overseeing all this is a veterinarian. Really? Yeah. Here's some current information about Kerr-McGee, and then we're going to get back to what we're talking about.
All right. Well, excuse the terrible, terrible video quality that I'm going to have. But I'm stuck exploring on a really, really crappy day. I'm going to try to show you a picture here on my phone. This is a picture of an old facility called the Kerr-McGee Cimarron Nuclear Fuel Processing Facility. This is back built in the 60s. This was a site known primarily for a whistleblower named Karen Silkwood. And that building there is one of the original buildings. So Karen Silkwood, where do I start? It's a fascinating topic. If you haven't heard about her, if you don't know about her, you should really look into it because it was a pretty big deal. Karen Silkwood died in 1974 from a fatal car crash. Karen Silkwood worked at this facility, and she was a whistleblower. And she basically blew the lid off the fact that this place was building nuclear fuel rods and was not doing it safely. Now, there is a gate here that I cannot get through, so I'm not going to go any further than this. So basically, since 1975, this place has been under some type of cleanup effort.
It's still not cleaned up. It's still not cleaned up. The wastewater, the sludge, all that stuff is still not cleaned up. And that on the side, look at the damage it did to human beings. Hey, look, you want to make nuclear weapons? Have the hell out of it. Have at it. I don't care. I wish me and OJ knew how to do that. My fake Bombay. However, you have to make sure that the ground that we get our vegetation from, okay, our vegetation does not come from the grocery store. You have to make sure that the water, which, by the way, does not come from the grocery store, it all comes from the earth. Some people don't still get it, is safe. Can't do it. It's crazy. And never mind all the people, including Karen Silkwood, that are dead.
And what's even crazier is somebody bought this place just a couple years ago. It's some type of an aerospace company. I think it's called Stewart something or other. Now, this road that I'm on here winds its way back quite a ways. And there's some other buildings basically directly like northeast of this building in front of you here. This is one of the original buildings. The only thing that's left back there is some foundations. You can see them on Google Maps. So there's no real reason to go back there. This location here is kind of, it's not hard to find, but it's kind of like purposely not put on a map. Like these buildings are purposely not marked. The address is purposely not marked. It's really kind of obscure. And I think they did that on purpose for whatever reason. But you can see there's like old fences and, you know, there's kind of a bigger, I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, absolutely nowhere. I'm going to try to get a shot here of the outside, maybe. Hopefully I don't get rain on the camera, but I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere. This is about 7 or 8 miles outside of Guthrie, Oklahoma. And Cimarron River is right there. So this property.
Another reason I would never go swimming in the Cimarron River. Shit. No. Any of my Okie friends in here ever gone swimming in the Cimarron River? We had an issue with the Illinois River years ago when Bill Clinton, who, by the way, I voted for twice, said, flush twice, the Okies need the water. And every time you went to the Illinois River to go floating or whatever, it smelled like chicken shit. Whole time. Smelled just like chicken shit.
Butts up against the Cimarron River and basically is east of Highway, I think this is called Highway 74, and north of Highway 33. So this kind of corner here, it's several, it's probably about a 100-acre property that this sat on. But from 1975, basically until now, this has been an active nuclear cleanup site, believe it or not. So what's crazy is that somebody bought this and is currently using it. So presumably they've been given the go-ahead that the ground level contamination has been taken care of. But to my understanding, let me roll up that window because it is noisy out. But to my understanding, the groundwater in this area is still contaminated. And this is only like 7 or 8 miles outside of downtown Guthrie, Oklahoma.
It is. I have friends that live over there. You're either going to get a state fair pumpkin that's as big as my house, or you're going to have zero vegetation. Y'all ever been to the state fair in Oklahoma and you see some of this shit that comes out of that area and you're like, how the hell did you grow a watermelon that big? Plutonium?
And it's really kind of puzzling to me that this building, first of all, one of these original buildings is still up. They didn't just bulldoze this and haul it off, bury it in the ground, whatever. It's a very interesting story. So if you're not familiar with it, just Google Karen Silkwood. There was a movie made about her in the 80s, like a big blockbuster movie, like a not a blockbuster movie, but like a big budget Hollywood movie made about her and her story. And she was a whistleblower, and she died very mysteriously in this car accident. She had an apartment somewhere not too far from here that was contaminated. So you got to realize Karen became contaminated herself. So this facility was making nuclear fuel in an unsafe way, meaning fine particles of nuclear material were being contaminated on their employees and being taken outside. It's kind of a big deal. And so Karen got contaminated several times and was decontaminated several times. And she was the whistleblower, and she died in a car accident that everybody thinks is murder. I don't think anyone has ever been taken to justice for it, but this property, so the company was called Kerr-McGee, the original company that was working here. And Kerr-McGee, I don't know if they sold it or went bankrupt, but different companies owned this over the years. And like I said, up until recently, it had gone through several hands. There was cleanup efforts going on. And eventually, these other companies ran out of money. I mean, you can imagine having the bill of a nuclear cleanup is immense. I mean, that's a huge bill. I don't know how any company could really afford to be paying that and still stay in business. So anyway, really oddball site. It's here. I don't know if it's technically Guthrie or not, but Highway 74 and Highway 33, the original building, one of the original buildings is still here. There are other buildings in the back, but they're just the foundations left. And I think there's some markers back there that I had found online about them marking where they had done some cleanup. But really, really weird site.
It's creepy weird. It's not just weird, it's creepy weird. Because so much craziness went on there. So much. Now, this is from a year ago on KOCO at Oklahoma City. And the issues with that plant and the death of Karen Silkwood continue. Somebody knows something. Now, after 50 years, are they still alive? I don't know. I don't believe for a minute that she took a ton of sleeping medication to go to Oklahoma City to give these documents to the New York Times reporter. I just don't. It makes zero sense. But the issues continue to this day.
Years ago, this nuclear fuel production facility, made famous by the movie Silkwood, closed its doors. To this day, records from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, or the NRC, show that radioactive material is still present at the site.
Still on that ground to this day, they still find nuclear activity in that ground. You don't want to go have a smoke break in that area.
Which sits just south of Crescent. Groundwater remains contaminated by uranium, which was once produced at the facility. Cleanup began after the plant closed in 1975, and that work is expected to last.
Damn the luck. Imagine that. Karen Silkwood is murdered November 13th, 1974. The movie didn't come out for a few years later. Yet, they closed everything down. And they had huge government contracts. But I hate when these safety professionals decide to cut corners in order to save money.
Until at least 2040. That's 65 years after it ceased operations.
We are reviewing proposals for the final groundwater cleanup of the site. So that's the one piece that's still under license from the NRC.
That was 5 years.
Okay, so they're still trying to clean up the groundwater. Still trying to take care of that hot mess over there. They said that with their efforts, it won't be done until the year 2040. How the hell will that? How old will I be then? Look at Shonda. I'm driving by Guthrie right now. Well, damn, Shonda, don't go swimming. Don't go swimming.
Years ago, when we first investigated the contaminants at 2 Oklahoma facilities once owned by the Kerr-McGee Chemical Corporation, 5 years since our interview, a plan has yet to be finalized to treat the groundwater contamination in Crescent. And with all this cleanup left to do, lawmakers are discussing the possibility of bringing nuclear back to the state. An interim study at the state capitol late last year discussed the upsides of building nuclear power plants in Oklahoma, saying it's something residents would support.
They like it because it's a reliable source of power. They like it because it's an affordable source of power. They like it because it's a clean source of power. And
have at it. Have at it. Who cares? But don't throw the wastewater into the rivers or on the ground. Simple. You have to have a wastewater facility. You have to have a way to do it.
and it provides economic and job benefits as well.
Lawmakers pointed out that nuclear power plants have the capability of operating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The U.S. Department of Energy also calls nuclear the largest source of clean energy in the United States. Clearly, a stable power grid is important, but at what cost? We went straight to the NRC to ask, if Oklahoma builds a power plant, could we see the same sort of nuclear contamination that we are dealing with in Crescent decades later?
Regulators say comparing then and now is not exactly apples to apples, that the Kerr-McGee facility here in Crescent was not a power plant, but they also say it's not like comparing apples and oranges.
Regulators say Crescent did deal with nuclear material, and it's right there in black and white how that went. But what about recent nuclear power plants?
The last nuclear plant that went in Georgia last year came in $17 billion over budget, 7 years late.
Kara Joy McKee is with the Sierra Club. It's an organization against bringing nuclear back to Oklahoma. They point to the costs associated, even with modern technology. The NRC told us decommissioning any nuclear power plant would cost at least $290 million. But the NRC said funding the cleanup for power plants specifically has never been a problem. So why, nearly 50 years later, is decommissioning still not complete in Crescent? Tronics Incorporated, formerly known as the Kerr-McGee Chemical Corporation, filed for bankruptcy in 2009. In 2011, the Cimarron Environmental Response Trust assumed responsibilities, including the cleanup. In 2020, the cost to make that happen was estimated by the NRC to be between $90 million and $130 million. But documents show the combined accounts from the facilities trust contained $71 million in 2022. That's nowhere near enough to clean up this Oklahoma land. We did get a hold of the trust, and they pointed us to their public relations team, who said, quote, "At this time, we are unable to provide additional site information beyond what is publicly available through the NRC."
Environmental cleanup is complicated. It's expensive.
It's expensive and dangerous and difficult to build. It's expensive and dangerous and difficult to decommission.
Now, as officials work to agree on a plan to treat the uranium left in the groundwater, Logan County residents can expect to wait another 16 years, at least, for the decommissioning to be complete.
Putting problems on our children and our children's children for the future.
And Crescent is not the only former nuclear facility in Oklahoma still waiting to be cleaned up. There are currently 2 others still undergoing decommissioning. And there is some brand new movement to report in the push to bring back nuclear power plants. 2 state senators have just introduced separate bills laying the groundwork. Both of them involve creating a set of rules.
All right, well, have at it. Have at it. So that is what is going on now. So back to Karen Silkwood. This is from Allegedly Funny, and this is a clip from the movie. Did you go to bed yet? Well, her real name's Dusty. They call her Dolly in the movie. That's her character. And the movie is really, really good. I don't understand the problem finding it. Robin said it's because of some sort of copyright stuff with Meryl Streep and Cher. Well, shit, all their other movies are out there. Well, they have a problem with this one. I mean, according to KOCO, it's an issue with Kerr-McGee. They never wanted that movie put out. So I don't know. I'm going to have to find an article or something. Uh-oh. Now they're going to say we're homophobic because Cher said the D word. And I don't mean the pogo stick word. Shonda said, where did you find this clip? It's from Allegedly Funny. And I'll have all the clips in the bio of the show. It's a great movie, by the way. It's a great movie. Real Rock and Robin. Good morning, Brooks, mods, and chats. Good to see you. Do any of you think Dusty could have warned the company what Karen was doing out of revenge? That has been a theory. That has been a theory. Since they lived together, a lot of people say Drew Stevens could have done it. That was the guy that she was with at the time. That he was pinned down by union bosses and people from the company and said, this is what's going down. Because no way 5 minutes into a ride did she just fall asleep and go into a culvert. Not with all those different paint chips on the back of the car. Sorry, I'm not a conspiracy theorist unless I'm talking about this case or the Kennedy assassination. Something's going to have to make sense. And this will make sense.
In our investigation into the Karen Silkwood case, she's the Oklahoma whistleblower whose death led to conspiracies, questions, and now decades later, people speaking out about her case.
Tuesday, we brought you David Burnham. He's a New York Times journalist. Silkwood was set to meet the night she died. Well, she never made it, but he spoke out for the first time in nearly 50 years to KOCO. And tonight, another man is speaking out for the first time, the wrecker who pulled Silkwood's car out and then towed it away.
KOCO's Elise Jones continues our investigation.
This is exactly what it is. Sec to no one. They shut her up permanently. But who got to who knew? Who got to who? Did someone get to Drew Stevens? Did someone get to Dusty? Was it someone at the Crescent Cafe where she was right before she took that trip down the road, down 74? Where was it? Who did it? Who ran her off the road at a high speed? The skid marks showed a high rate of speed. How fast would you be going if you're falling asleep behind the wheel within 5 minutes of leaving in that cafe? It makes no sense. None.
And she sat down to hear what that wrecker wants you to know, only on 5.
And I got a phone call from Crescent PD saying that I need a wrecker south of 33 Highway.
Ted Sebring owns Sebring Ford in Crescent, Oklahoma. He says his company responded to accidents often, but that wasn't his typical role.
I told her, I said, well, call my service manager, that because I don't usually run the wrecker. And she said they can't find them, and it's possible 30, signal 30, which in our businesses, I mean, that it was a dead person.
Sebring says he got in the wrecker and hit the road, knowing it was serious. He didn't have time to change his clothes and tells us he was dressed in a suit and brand new boots. When he got to the scene,
there was about 3 to 4 inches of water running in that ditch at that time.
Knowing he wasn't dressed to get in the water, he called for help. Sebring says he sat in the truck waiting for the trooper to give him the green light to tow the car away. He analyzed the scene, saying it seemed normal, but one thing stood out to him.
And there were several.
Robin, this is important. She said, I watched a video years ago, but can't find it now. The guy was saying there were guys in suits around the car acting suspicious, but it wasn't the wrecker guy. The thing is, he was there in a suit. He didn't change his clothes. And if you look at the damage to this car, that's a little more than going into the ditch, okay? Little more than going to the culvert. Somebody was chasing her. That is the reason she increased her speed. That's the reason there's the different paint chips on the back of the car. And she went off the highway. And it's a small highway. Look at the car. Now, the trunk was open, but the trunk latch was not damaged. Somebody was looking for those documents.
He analyzed the scene, saying it seemed normal, but one thing stood out to him.
And there were several people around the wreck site at the time I got there.
Here on Highway 74 is where Karen Silkwood's car was found crashed near this culvert. That's where wreckers say they had to pull the car out. Sebring towed Silkwood's car to the shop and went back home. Hours later, his phone rang again. This time, dispatch said the car needed to be checked immediately.
The guy gets on the phone at the dispatcher there at Crescent PD and says, Mr. Sebring, if the car's hot, you won't open up in the morning. So that gets my attention. And so I said, well, the only way you're going to get in there is with the trooper being with me.
Sebring says a trooper and multiple people with Geiger counters checked the car for nuclear materials, knowing Silkwood had been exposed to plutonium. The one thing he wants you to know is he checked the inside of the car, boxing up even the trash inside. And he says he knows for certain
There wasn't any binders in that car when I
This is so important what he's saying. They told him, don't touch the car. It could be hot. Not as in stolen, as in nuclear radioactivity. He cleaned up trash and other things, but he said there was no binders in that car. This is so important. Hey,
Sebring says a trooper and multiple people with Geiger counters checked the car for nuclear materials, knowing Silkwood had been exposed to plutonium. The one thing he wants you to know is he checked the inside of the car, boxing up even the trash inside, and he says he knows for certain
there wasn't any binders in that car when I picked it up out of the ditch. There wasn't any paperwork. There's a folder or a book or anything like that.
But he doesn't know if that was always the case. In the FBI files from their investigation, a trooper on scene describes 2 stacks of paper, a half-inch thick and a red spiral notebook. That's something Sebring says he never saw. Elise Jones, KOCO 5 News.
Now, officially, Silkwood's death was ruled an accident.
We have a team of investigative journalists working on this case and working to tell your stories involving Karen Silkwood. If you have a tip or if you want to share your
And they have an entire email address to KOCO. Anyone that knows anything. Silkwood at KOCO.com. They're like, oh, it was an accident. She fell asleep behind the wheel. She gained speed from 42 miles an hour to 80. Sounds to me like somebody was chasing her. Now let's go through another clip of the movie. This is a clip from David Gibson. I will put this in the video details. This is when they found a ton of contaminated things in her Okies. Don't take my kids' pictures. Don't take my Rossaroni. So he's saying, Drew's car's clean. Dusty's car's clean, which is another theory people have. If Drew Stevens has a clean car and Dusty, they call her Dolly in the movie, she has a clean car, why is everything around Karen contaminated? It's actually very important, and this is one of the only movies I would tell someone to watch to get the actual story. They might have changed some names, but I believe this will never be solved. Sorry to give you a teaser like that. I don't think it's going to be solved. Because this guy who is talking to Karen right here, well, Meryl Streep playing Karen, he had been threatening her for a while. We want to help you. We want to help you with a place to stay. GTFO, my friends. GTFO. Could you imagine getting plutonium put in your piss? We want to help you. We want to help you. They want to help you shut up. They want to scare you to the point that you quit talking about the safety violations, which are still, by the way, in the earth in Crescent, Oklahoma. Proven fact. Damn. In my own words, I'm contaminated and I'm dying. All right, this is from the journalist that spoke to KOCO, and he said they wanted to scare her. They wanted to scare her. That's what they wanted. They wanted to scare her to the point that she would not speak any longer. They wanted her just to go there, do her job, STFU, not worry about who's getting scrubbed down with Comet by the vet in the shower, and just continue on with the day.
Now to the decades-old mystery surrounding Karen Silkwood. Those involved still questioning what happened to her. And tonight, for the first time, one of the major players in the case is sharing his story.
You may remember Silkwood was a chemical technician at a plutonium fuels plant in Crescent. Her story was launched into the national spotlight in November of 1974. That's when she tested positive for plutonium exposure at work. And later, it was discovered there was plutonium in her apartment. There are many theories about how it got there.
You likely saw some of those theories in the movie that starred Meryl Streep. Silkwood was sent to a lab for extensive testing for several days, and when she returned, friends say that she was on a mission to expose dangers at that Crescent facility. But she did not get the chance. Karen Silkwood died on an Oklahoma roadway.
It was the same night. She was headed to meet a New York Times journalist. And tonight, for the first time since that night, nearly 50 years ago, that journalist is sharing his story and his theory behind what happened to Karen Silkwood. Okay.
And somebody, I can't say they, because I don't know who they is, someone would have gotten him had they not gotten her first. Because the journalist can't do his job without the documents. And when OHP got there, which is Oklahoma Highway Patrol, when the tow truck driver got there was no documents in that car any longer.
OCO's Elise Jones has his story only on 5.
We went to Oklahoma City and waited for Karen, that was the schedule, and she never came.
Karen Silkwood died in a car crash on the way to meet investigative reporter David Burnham. The New York Times journalist wrote stories on nuclear energy at the time. Burnham was approached about the whistleblower and what was described to him as proof that something was very wrong at the nuclear facility.
And I at first said no, but my bureau chief said, yeah, you're going.
Now, as he nears 90 years old, Burnham.
You know, bless him. Bless him. I mean, the fact that he was like, yeah, I don't want to go out there. And his editor said, no, you're going to go. You're going to meet this woman. And he actually planned to write a book with these documents. They planned to take these documents to Washington, D.C. and stop with hazards in workplaces.
Burnham agreed to talk with KOCO for the first time. He was waiting for Karen Silkwood with a member of the Oil, Chemical, and Atomic Workers Union.
And it got later and later, and we eventually got a call from someone in the Kerr-McGee factory that she had died in a car crash.
He describes heading to the scene of the crash that killed Silkwood that same night.
That night was very scary, and going down there, I drove the guy from the union and the other person crazy by driving slowly. I don't know why I drove slowly, but they said, drive faster, drive faster.
When they arrived, they found debris at the scene, but investigators had already removed the car. So what happened? The official ruling, Silkwood died in a single car accident and had medication in her system that may have caused her to fall asleep at the wheel. The union wasn't buying it.
But remember, she was only 5 minutes into her trip. 5 minutes. And I would not be surprised if the journalist she was talking to, considering Karen Silkwood had already talked to the Atomic Energy Commission, who, by the way, wanted to keep the plant going, didn't tap his phone and know what was going on. None of this would surprise me. And I mean none of it.
happened. The official ruling, Silkwood died in a single car accident and had medication in her system that may have caused her to fall asleep at the wheel. The union wasn't buying it.
The union hired an investigative organization to look into it, and the union concluded that her car had been rammed by some car from the rear.
Did someone want to stop Silkwood from meeting the national journalist that night?
They may not have wanted to kill her, but they wanted to scare her and make her shut up.
The company Silkwood worked for, Kerr-McGee, denied any involvement, and Burnham agreed it couldn't have been the company.
I eventually decided that it was really unlikely that Kerr-McGee executives would try to kill her, especially in a way that's so dubious, running into the back of a car, and how is that going to work?
But was it an accident, as the official report said? Do you think that she ran off the road, or do you think that somebody hit her, and why?
And it's possible that someone came up and hit him, maybe hit the back of the car to scare her, and got out of hand and killed her. But I have no evidence of that, of course. That's just sort of speculation on my part.
What he said is clear. Silkwood was right about the trouble at the plant. He pointed to a Nuclear Regulatory Commission report published years later.
We had evidence that she was going to talk about problems at Cimarron.
And it's clear someone wanted to hurt the whistleblower.
Someone was bringing nuclear material to her house and trying to poison her that way. I mean, I just don't know what can make of it.
Union investigators reported that Silkwood had a folder full of documents with her the night she was planning to meet Burnham and her car crashed. But what happened to that folder and its contents remains as mysterious as her death.
Well, the folder wasn't scattered around the culvert. The folder was missing. The folder was totally gone. The folder was totally gone. And no one's ever going to say that Karen Silkwood was some sort of teetotaler. They're not going to say, oh, she never smoked pot. She never took any. No. Some people have theorized that the union set her up because so many people were leaving the union. And that folder, I guarantee, on November 13th, 1974, didn't exactly go into anyone's sock drawer. It got burnt. It got burned up somewhere. Real Rockin' Robin, really, most killings are so dubious. Well, and some are easy to figure out real quick. But when we have these whistleblower accidents, as they call them, you don't get shot in the back of the head if you're wanting to check out early. Doesn't work that way. These accidental drownings, especially in the bathtub. It's like, how many damn years have you been taking a bath and you just drown that one night? Or single car accidents. You've got to be kidding me. You have got to be kidding me.
Elise Jones, KOCO 5 News.
No one was ever charged in any way with contributing to Karen Silkwood's crash, and the official report is still listed as a single vehicle accident. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We have had a team of investigative journalists. They've been pouring through these documents right here.
Yeah, digital editors Brooke Withrow, Addison Cleaver, along with Elise Jones, they've done amazing work. They have dug up files that were believed to have been missing until now.
Could you imagine what is in those documents, though? Could you imagine? And who at Kerr-McGee realized they were missing? GB Folk said, how did your procedure go? Do you need anything? I'm 100% fine. I actually rescheduled it. It will be on Monday. V. Oakley said they found some of the files. No, that folder has never been recovered. You guys want to go through some more stuff? Because I like this guy. His name's Ready for History out of Yukon, Oklahoma. And he is right at the culvert where she had the single car accident.
Hey everyone, today's story is going to be a little bit different. It's a little sad and it's a little mysterious, but it's about a woman named Karen Silkwood. And she was an early whistleblower against one of the largest companies in Oklahoma and also the nation, Kerr-McGee. On the evening of November 13th, 1974, her Honda ran off of the road and struck the cement culvert right behind me.
Karen Silkwood was a young, beautiful 26-year-old woman when she moved to the Oklahoma City area. In early August of 1972, she landed a job as a lab technician at the Kerr-McGee Cimarron facility. This was located just south of Crescent, Oklahoma. The plant takes its name from the nearby Cimarron River and the town named Cimarron City. This position at the plant was really a dream job for Karen. She always excelled in math and science. In fact, during high school, she was the only female in her chemistry class. She had even received a scholarship for her college from her studies in science. She was excited about this job and being able to do something with her skills. The plant mixed plutonium and uranium oxide into pellets, which were then formed into rods. These rods were used as fuel for nuclear reactors, which was considered at the time to be a clean alternative for energy.
And it could be. They still use those rods. They still use them. You see, you can't get into outer space without nuclear energy. Some people think that they can, fuel up a rocket from the local come and go, and you can get up into space. And sec to no one is right. Jobs like hers were few and far between for women in the 70s. Now remember, she was making $6.12 an hour, which none of us would roll out of bed for $6 an hour, okay? But remember, in 1972 to 1974, that was a good living.
Not long after starting this position, Karen met her boyfriend Drew Stevens and roommate Sherry Lou Ellis. She also joined the union, where she was eventually elected to a 3-person negotiation team. It was this position that she took very seriously. She started observing problems with the employee safety and documenting those. She also witnessed tampering of X-rays, which was used to examine the fuel rods. If gaps were found and left untreated, it could actually cause the plant to have a meltdown or even blow up. In the summer of 1974, she voiced her concerns to the Atomic Energy Commission in Washington, D.C. It was around this same time period that Karen was contaminated with plutonium for the first time. When a person is found to be contaminated, they were stripped down naked and forced to take a shower. And an employee in a chemical suit would then scrub down the contaminated person with brushes, powdered detergent, and bleach. This was a really painful procedure, and it actually...
Could you imagine somebody with wire brushes getting you naked and scrubbing you down with Comet? You've got to be kidding me.
Removed one layer of your skin. At that time, she was told that she was fine, but yet she had to submit weekly urine and fecal samples. In the meantime, Karen kept compiling evidence against Kerr-McGee. In Crescent, Oklahoma, the union brought in scientists and doctors who explained the dangers of plutonium to the employees and how it could cause cancer. The amount needed to cause cancer was actually less than the size of a period on a piece of paper. At this point, people within the plant realized what she was doing. Many people started harassing her and shunning her because they were fearful that she would have the plant shut down. They all feared that they would lose their jobs, and they didn't like that. On November 5th, 1974, she waved her hands in front of the radiation meter as she was getting off of work. The alarms went off and she was found to be contaminated, and she had one of those painful scrub down showers once again. On November 6th, the next day, she returned to work, and after 1 hour, she left her work area to attend a union meeting. Again, she set off the alarms and had once again another painful decontamination scrub down. She was sent home after that and returned the next morning on November 7th. On the way in, she set off the contamination alarms and had a third contamination scrubbing, which was extremely painful. At this time, Kerr-McGee said that they realized she was being contaminated from outside of the plant. So this is the apartment that Karen Silkwood actually lived in. And it's the one where they came and stripped everything out of here. Everything off of the walls, the paint, the television, the couch, the refrigerator, everything was missing out of this apartment. And she had absolutely nothing at all. You can see the lettering on the door is a little bit different. I think that it used to just say 2 right here on the window. But the 9082 is what is different. And it kind of threw me off trying to find this, but that is the actual apartment. So I was just talking to a resident in here, and they said that no one is currently living in here. But I thought maybe there was someone with a welcome mat, and there's some Christmas lights up there and a hummingbird feeder. But I didn't want to freak anyone out for filming here. But a little piece of history that probably no one in this little apartment resident area knew about. So this building here with the light pole and trash can used to be known as the Hub Cafe. And on the evening of November 13th, 1974, this was the last known location where Karen Silkwood was seen alive. They had a union meeting inside here, and Karen confided to a fellow union member, co-worker, and friend that she had enough information to finally come forward and turn in the Kerr-McGee Corporation for fraud and for also safety concerns, where she felt like the company was putting profits and money ahead of employee safety. And so she told her friend that she had this big folder in which she showed her this huge folder. It was a manila folder, and it was pretty thick.
So on the night of November 13th, 1974, Karen would have walked out that.
Okay, hang on. Who do you think the friend is that she confided in? Because friends will fuck you. They will. I don't care how tight people think are with some people. They will. The hardest thing to do is to take the knives out of your back and figure out who put them in. What friend alerted who that she had this folder full of documents? Was it someone at Kerr McGee? Was it Dusty? Was it Drew? Was it one of the union members? I would start with that person. Just my opinion.
Door, got in her little Honda, and then headed south on this highway, Highway 74. Headed straight to Oklahoma City to meet up with her boyfriend, the head of the union, and also the New York Times reporter, David Burnham. So at 7 p.m., Karen left the city of Crescent and was traveling south, going this way on Highway 74, making her way to Oklahoma City when she ran off of the road right here, temporarily went airborne and hit that embankment on the other side where the cement is. And that's what killed her. It basically completely crumpled the whole front end of the car. And you can actually see the chunks of cement that her car took out of this when it hit. They're still here. And something that's kind of interesting is this hubcap right here says Honda. So I don't know if it was placed here by someone or if it's just a weird coincidence. This is not from her car. This had taken place in 1974. This is a newer model hubcap. I'm not even sure the particular Honda that she had even had hubcaps back then, but that's a newer one. So I don't know if that's a memorial or if it was placed here by accident due to it just falling off of a car and happened to come down through here, or maybe it washed through here, washed down through here. Not sure, but
Now, I hate to tell old Yukon, that's not Karen's hubcap. It's a little too shiny. It's a little too new. And I'm going to just assume that that hubcap, unless it's a memorial, I have a feeling it's not off her car.
pretty interesting that there's a Honda one there. But on the evening of November 13th, when she ran off of the road, the first person to find her was actually a truck driver that was coming along this highway here. And I suppose he saw the tracks that had come off of the road and possibly seen her taillights lit up. But he pulled over, and then shortly after he pulled over, a couple managers from the Kerr McGee company just happened to be driving along this road here. What are the chances of that? But they drove here and they pulled over to stop and see what happened. And that's when they noticed her car. Now this is before any police officers showed and possibly seen her taillights lit up. But he pulled over, and then shortly after he pulled over, a couple managers from the Kerr McGee company.
Now, this is important for sure, okay? How could a couple of managers from the Kerr McGee company just happen upon the wreckage and the lost life of Karen Silkwood? See, it has been speculated for years that they put some sort of mob hit on her, okay? True. I mean, could you imagine you have a wreck and two of your managers that hated your ass just happened to come across you?
Just happened to be driving along this road here. What are the chances of that? But they drove here and they pulled over to stop and see what happened. And that's when they noticed her car. Now, this is before any police officers showed up. But there was an Oklahoma State police officer that showed up. And when he arrived at the scene, he noticed her purse. And it actually had 2 joints and quailings in it. And he also noticed that there were Kerr-McGee papers scattered along through here. And so he picked them up and actually put them in the car and didn't think anything about it at all. But when that car was towed out of here and investigated, there was no papers at all found. No Kerr-McGee papers, no manila folder, nothing. The Kerr-McGee company was actually able to comb through the car first. So because of the autopsy and the police report, they determined that Karen fell asleep at the wheel.
Hold the phone. Why would the Kerr-McGee company be able to go through her car? It's not a company car. There was no cell phones back then. Why would they be allowed to go through her car first?
And ran off of the road. But there was a separate investigation that was done by the family and the union, and they determined some things that make you think otherwise. And one of those was that the steering wheel had been grasped and then bent forward on both sides, meaning that she had to be awake and then stiffened up to brace for impact as she ran off of the road, because the whole steering wheel was bent forward. The other thing that they found was the rear bumper was dented in, and it actually had a couple paint chips that were a different color from her car. So the thinking is that she was ran off of the road. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but when she did, she lost control and then hit right over here. Now, she was on quailings, but it was a prescription and it was considered completely normal. It was to help her sleep because the Kerr-McGee company was asking these people to work 12-hour shifts, 7 days a week, no days off. And so it was to help her sleep. So it was in her system, but how much, not really exactly sure on that. But it was one of the most stressful nights of her life as she was having to turn in the company. She already felt feared by the company. And this is just a few miles south of where she came from, not very far off. The union and the New York Times reporter that she was supposed to meet, along with her boyfriend, showed up here at the scene, and it had been completely cleaned up. The car was gone, everything. They did find a book that she had been reading on this scene, and it was splattered with her blood. But that was all that they found as far as any kind of paperwork. It's just a big mystery, a big debate. Don't know if we'll ever have any answers because the people that could know about it will probably never come forward if they're still alive today, I guess. But either way, it's a set of coincidences that happened, and it really makes you wonder. But she was definitely headed to Oklahoma City with some sort of information. It's interesting that there wasn't one piece of that information available at all. So the location of this is just south of Highway 33 on Highway 74, and this is on the east side of the road. It's kind of a hill this way, then of course a hill back this way. It just kind of dips down right here. That's the exact location where it happened.
Karen's family buried her in the Danville Cemetery, which is in Kilgore, Texas. They actually had to go out and buy her a dress to bury her in, since all her clothes were taken from her apartment. Her roommate Sherry Lou Ellis died on November 2nd, 2012, from cancer at the age of 59. Her body was donated to medical science, so she actually has no burial location. So we are now at the final resting place for Drew Stevens, and he is located in Bethany Cemetery in Bethany, Oklahoma, and it's right across from the Wiley Post Airport. You can see that airplane there. He was big in the aerobatic community. He was actually the sitting vice president of the International Aerobatic Club at the time of his passing, as well as the owner of Aerocraft Inc. And he died while practicing aerobatic maneuvers at the El Reno Airport here in Oklahoma. And he was also the owner of Hammer and Dolly Auto Repair. But he left behind a wife and 2 children. At the day of his funeral, they actually did a missing man formation right above his funeral here. In 1983, Hollywood released the film Silkwood, which depicted the life of Karen. It starred Meryl Streep as Karen Silkwood, Cher as Mary Lou Ellis, and Kurt Russell as Drew Stevens, the boyfriend of Karen. The film had numerous nominations for awards, but it actually earned Meryl Streep an Oscar nomination for Best Actress and Cher for Best Supporting Actress. In the Golden Globes, Cher actually won for Best Supporting Actress.
GB said, no mystery to me. The ender and took the proof. Yep. Because there has never, ever been any remnants of those documents. They're gone. And again, 2 managers from Kerr-McGee just happened to be together that day and saw the wreckage. 5 minutes after leaving the cafe, she fell asleep at the wheel, even though her speed exceeded. No, doesn't work that way. And goes into the culvert. Someone drove her off the road. Someone did. You guys are the absolute best. I love you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for shaking off the nonsense that goes on those dirty YouTube streets. Please hit the like button because it does help your old friend Brooks here and her old fake Bombay. And I will see you back here tomorrow. We have a lot of stuff to go through tomorrow about damn Sarah Boone. She's at it again. She is at it again. Some people should not be allowed to use the internet. Some people should not be allowed to speak. And Sarah, she's got some stuff going on. And I cannot wait for you to hear what she has pulled lately. You guys are the absolute best. Again, thank you for being here.